is a global alliance of frontline organizations and individuals. And we initially came together almost 5 years ago under the banner of End Pandemics, the End Pandemics Alliance. We're all united in our vision of a cooler planet, species and habitats in recovery, and fewer, less damaging pandemics through our 3 strategic pillars that underline the One Health approach, which is protecting wildlife, preserving natural habitats, and reforming agriculture. Our frontline practitioners gathered here convene regularly under the banner of Earth Team to share lessons learned and to improve and merge solutions to the planetary crises that we're facing today. An important component of this is our monthly town hall series, where we update the group on the activities of the coordination units and then are treated to a presentation from experts in the field, after which we have the opportunity to interrogate the solutions that they've presented to us. Before I introduce this month's Spotlight speaker, I'd like to open up the floor to any partners who want to share updates with the group, and I'll, Chair's prerogative, start with a bit of a homage to David Bonderman, who died December the 9th, I believe. Not yet. He was the 400th richest person in the world. He was minority owner of Boston Celtics, majority owner of the Seattle Kraken NHL team. But from our perspective, he was also the main benefactor for Wildcat Foundation, who gave about 40 million a year in grants to frontline conservation organizations, anti-poaching principally. So he was an enormously significant figure, died in early December, and his son, Cale, should be taking on the foundation. So I'm very hopeful that Wildcat will continue to have as big an impact on conservation as they have under David for the last little while. Family are currently in mourning, but hope they will be back in the game very soon, because we are beneficiaries of theirs as well, as I'm sure other people in the room are too. So a quick homage to David for the massive impact that he had on conservation throughout his long and illustrious life. Anybody else like to give any updates from the field or anything else? Roger, over to you.
Hi, yes. Last year I gave a talk to Earth Team on land maxing as a means to rebuilding natural, social, and human capital, and also to create new physical and financial capital. In other words, a new and more sustainable way to reboot the planet through tropical agriculture. And it has a specific focus on Africa, and also a specific focus on new business opportunities for local rural communities. And so I was just wanting to report today that the Tropical Agricultural Association International, which is based in the UK, is in the process of trying to set up 4 projects in Africa: Malawi, Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia, basically to promote the concept of land maxing. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Well, you and Geoff should certainly speak about the Malawian component of that. I think we'll let Geoff talk through his work first, but I'm sure you'll be straight in the Q&A afterwards, because there's a lot for you to talk about, I'm sure. Thank you. Anybody else on partner updates? Steve.
Like Vijay. Oh, Vijay was clapping. I thought he was.
Okay. I think Vijay was clapping.
Okay, very good. Okay, yeah, a few updates. I'll mention a couple others during the coordination unit thing, but first of all, we are working on some task forces, developing some task forces in Asia and Africa and Latin America, multi-agency ones to combat nature crimes, basically, and making a little progress now on inserting the One Health element. So basically One Health related agencies or personnel to join those. And with that in mind, we're now talking to X Labs, Conservation X Labs. They have a device technology called Nabbits, which can help sample live or dead animals at hotspots, so you don't have to take them to the lab. So that's a quick response thing we're working on. Secondly, we are also working on some investigations, which we'll just put out there. Generally, we're very interested in any data. As you see on our solutions map, we also have another map, a heat map on seizures, et cetera. And we're increasingly developing 2 buckets of data on our research, one on the body parts trade and the other on live exotics. We're finding that most traffickers are doing one or the other. And a lot of it's tied up with the legal trade, as we've often mentioned. So, for example, there was a case recently from West Africa to Thailand, there's baby gorilla, which opens up, through the investigation, all kinds of data on what that supply chain was also involved in. Very relevant to potential zoonotic outbreaks. And then the other thing I'll just mention real quick is that we are opening up again collaboration talks with Preventing Pandemics at the Source, the other similar coalition to ours. They now have a new leader, Dr. Neil Vora. So we'll have a meeting set up with them later this month. I'll mention more during our coordination unit updates, but just wanted to mention those off the top. Thanks.
Great, thank you. For anyone working in Mozambique at the moment, the World Bank are crying out for people to be funding. I've been speaking with them recently. Looks like they're going to be funding our next operation. And likewise, the EU, anyone working in transboundary areas in Africa, the EU are super keen on transfrontier conservation areas at the moment. So lots of grant potential for organizations working in those landscapes. Any more partner updates? Otherwise, we'll move on to coordination units. Kartika, if you're there, would you like to start on solutions? Give us a quick update where we are.
Yeah. So we have around, I think, 85 solutions at the moment. And we had a nice talk last month with our developers. I think Ritesh is here from Zenocast to basically discuss how we can further add more layers of visualizations to that map, how we can connect similar solutions working on similar topics together. So that's underway. And then we have a couple volunteers with Freeland who will help us publicize this map now, reaching to a wider audience and possibly recruiting more solutions or partners together. Yeah. So those are the next steps that we're planning for the year.
And now I just want to add that Ritesh from Zenocast is here, and I believe we're going to be inviting them to Spotlight next month to have an interactive discussion with the partners here on the next iteration of the Earth Team website, solutions map, and also our proposed point system, which will reward impact and all the other things that we want to see people doing to push the planetary health approach.
Thanks, Steve. And nice to see you, Ritesh. Glad you're here and look forward to your talk next month. Molly, are you around to give a quick comms update? Saw you earlier.
Hello, I'm around. Hi. Yeah, so we are starting off this year with a new Earth Team TV episode, which is Steve interviewing Eric Fleischman, who's infectious disease specialist, but also specializes in anti-aging. And they had a really interesting conversation in December. So we've started doing this kind of using the Earth Team town hall meetings to kind of help us do some of our Earth Team TV recordings. And that was a really great conversation. So we'll be posting that probably later this week, and we'll send a link out in the WhatsApp group. And we're also doing a film festival, which is a partnership between Freeland and Earth Team. And there are a lot of films being submitted from all over the world so far. The festival will be in September. It'll be in Green Lake, Wisconsin. But the submissions are streaming in. We have about 35 now from countries all over the world. Long films, short films, everything is welcome. And I just want to encourage everybody to submit your films. I'm going to show you what the submission platform looks like, and I'm going to send a link out here to everybody so that you can share it with anyone who you know who has good films about regenerative agriculture, about any of our themes, basically, any of our topics that we focus on in Earth Team are welcome in the festival, any length. Can be fiction, can be documentary. Here is the platform, just so you can see what it looks like. So it's really easy to submit. You submit here. We are accepting until April 15th for the regular deadline. We also have an early bird deadline, which has a discount. You know, it's a small fee, but if anybody can't afford the submission fee, we also have a fee waiver, and they can email me for the fee waiver. So please encourage anyone, even if they don't have budget to submit, if you think they have a good film, we can send them a waiver and let them submit for free. And I also wanted to just ask all of you for anything that you would like to see in Earth Team TV episodes in the coming year. We're looking for 3 new ideas for now for Earth Team TV episodes. So anything that you guys think would be interesting, anyone you think would be interesting to interview. We do have this possibility of using our town hall meetings as kind of a source of materials for Earth Team TV, but we also have the option to interview people who aren't at our meetings and who you just think would be really interesting to interview. So please let me know if you have any ideas. You can email me directly. I'll drop my email in the chat here in case you don't have it. And I'm also dropping the Freeland Film Festival link for anyone who you think should submit. That's it.
Thanks, Molly. So immediately, we need to speak to John Colby about the enormous number of animals brought into the US without any biosecurity checks every single year. He would be fantastic for Earth Team TV for that. And then, yeah, Jenny and Jimmy about tackling the Ebola crisis. I think specifically that work, I think would be fascinating. And plenty others. I'll drop you a line. Steve, do you want to give us some updates on coordination units, fundraising, etc.?
Sure. And just to add, we're going to have an Earth Team house at that film festival, so anybody can get there. You got a free place to stay by the lake. That'll be in September. Fundraising, 2 things that we're focusing on, among others. One is repositioning the bid that we worked very hard on with the State Department. They were encouraging, thought we did it. We said our proposal was the most talked about of all the bids. We didn't win, but it was tight competition. But there's another bid coming out that supposedly is quite suitable. So that'll be probably dropping in April. So we will be working between now and basically March to refashion the bid given their responses. We do need to narrow our activities down a bit. That's clear. So anybody who wants to work on the proposal, I'll just say, you know, the more people participate in the proposal, the higher chance your activity gets in there. Reach out to us, because we're going to start working on that this next week. Secondly, we're also having a discussion in the coordination unit about hybridizing Earth Team. So there is this civil society leg through all of us. And secondly, registering it as a company. I've talked to lawyers. It looks like we can do that. There would not be a conflict of interest. So we'll come back to you in the next meeting with more details. But this would allow us basically to position Earth Team to also line up with corporations and governments that would prefer to work with the company rather than NGO. And it might be a suitable segue to today's talk also. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. And without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Geoff Furber. Geoff and I first spoke back in 2019. I've just been back and checked, due to our mutual interest in Africa and African environmentalism. After a very successful career in business here in the UK, Geoff and his wife Liz founded the charity Ripple Africa in 2003. Ripple Africa runs large-scale environmental projects in Malawi with the aim of empowering the communities they work with to develop without degrading their environment. Their work aims to tackle Malawi's most pressing environmental crises, which are deforestation and overfishing, while also addressing food poverty and malnutrition. In addition to their environmental projects, they also run small-scale education and healthcare initiatives as well. And last year, Geoff and his wife Liz were awarded MBEs, which is a rather prestigious gong here in the UK, in the King's Birthday Honours List. Geoff will talk about taking a business approach to his charity work, which has enabled him to achieve massive results with minimal resources. Geoff, the screen is yours.
Okay. Well, I think what I'll do is, if I can share the screen, share my screen. I've got a presentation here. So,
There should be, there we go.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just, wait a minute, just get the, so I'm sharing the screen. Wait a minute. I just need to get, there we are. So yes, so my talk today, I've called it Aid Isn't About Ticking Boxes. So often aid is about ticking boxes and it's about writing long reports. I feel it's much more about achieving amazing results. Now, what I want to tell you about today is a little bit about how we started and how the charity started. As you heard before, my wife and I started Ripple Africa in 2003, and it was rather by accident, actually. What I'm going to be talking today about is our forest conservation projects and our Fish for Tomorrow project, and how we work with local communities and empower them to be the solution to the problems. Well, it really all started after I left school. I went on an overland trip in this lorry through from Kenya down to South Africa and had the most amazing time, and thought one day I want to buy a Land Rover and do the same sort of thing myself and have safaris in various parts of Africa. Anyway, I had to go back to England and start work, and I got a job with Rentokil as a pest control surveyor. I didn't go to university, but in 1979, I started my own business, which was an office cleaning business. So I'm from a very different background to most people going into the sort of charity work that we're doing. Anyway, this business has been running for 45 years, and I've learnt really all my business ideas from that. And so Ripple Africa is really run like a business, and we try and make work fun. We keep things simple. We empower our staff and we respect our staff. We have small teams. Now that's really important. And everything that we do in the charity, we work with small teams, although it's a large projects that we're doing. We like a sort of a can-do attitude, and we have a lack of bureaucracy. I feel there's far too much bureaucracy in everything, and particularly in the aid sector. The other thing that we spend a lot of time on is honesty. Very often when we're working in Africa, we find that people want to please you. So they want to tell you that things are going well, and often they're not. And what I'd like to do is to get all our staff to understand that it's absolutely fine to make mistakes, as long as you don't make them too often, and to learn from them, but most of all, to be honest about them. And we like people to have a passion to achieve the amazing results. So in 2000, my wife and I took our children on a holiday to Africa, to Zimbabwe and Zambia. And we had the most amazing time. Anyway, we ended up buying one of the Land Rovers, which was one of my dreams. And once we bought this Land Rover, we decided that we could go on safaris whenever we wanted to. So one of these trips, we traveled to Malawi, and we traveled to this place. It's called Moya Beach Lodge. And it was a lovely spot, and we found it was for sale. And so we decided to buy it. And then it was a question of what are we going to do? So we thought we'd help the local people. And I think I've been running my business for long enough that I wanted to do something different. So it's actually based in Nkata Bay district, which is this red area here in Malawi. And we first started with education projects and then healthcare projects. And we also recruited local volunteers to come and work on the various projects that we're working on. And we still have these projects today. So we now run 8 preschools. We support 6 primary schools. We've built a secondary school, and this is the computer lab, which is one of the best computer labs in the north of Malawi. We do lots of building projects, building classrooms, teachers' houses, toilets, that sort of thing. Well, we started with 12 staff, and we now have over 800 full-time staff working for the charity. Now, really, the big problems with Malawi are down to population growth. It's quite frightening how quickly everything is growing. When I was born in 1956, we had 3 million people in Malawi, and now we have something like 22 million people. And to give you some sort of context to that, if the UK had grown at the same rate, we'd have a bigger population than America. So this is having a massive effect on all resources, whether it's natural resources or whether it's on education or healthcare. It has a massive effect. But the forest conservation side is something that I was really keen to get involved with at an early stage. When we moved to Inkatha Bay district, we found that it was the area that had the most forest, but most of Malawi now is completely deforested, and as far as the eye can see, you don't see any large trees. And what happens is that the people come in, they just cut the trees down like this, set them on fire, and they don't even use the timber, even though there's a shortage of timber. This is an area, a typical area, where a farmer has just decided to cut down some trees here. It's very steep, as you can see, and as they've set fire to the trees, they'll grow crops for 1 year, maybe 2 years, possibly 3 at the outside. But as soon as it rains, and we get about 1.20 meters of rain in this area, in just a few months, the topsoil washes away and it's hopeless. Now, down the south of the country, this is what the hills look like. They used to be all forested. It's devastating to see, and really the trees are just not coming back in these areas now. So when I knew nothing, being an office cleaner, I knew nothing about forest conservation. I knew nothing about fish conservation or any of these sort of things. So my best source is to go and talk to the local people. So we talk to communities like this, and they know the problems. They know when they were younger, there were lots of trees and there was better rainfall, etc., etc. And now it's all changed. So we talk to the communities. And one of the things we found out was that they could have protected village forest areas. And these forest areas were under the control of the local chiefs. And normally it was just a very small hill where it had some trees, and the chiefs could fine anybody that set fires to these areas or were cutting the trees down. And I thought, well, if you've got lots of these little areas and you add them together, you can actually get large areas, which is really what I'm interested in. So that's really what we did. And one of the early projects we ran was for Kandoli Forest, which is 130 square kilometers of forest area. It was actually a government forest reserve, but because the government has no money for forestry, nobody was protecting it. So people would just move up into the area, cut the trees down, open up their farms, grow their whatever. It was just being totally destroyed. And this was a main area for the water source, for fresh water source for Inkatha Bay, which you see at the bottom of the picture here. So the district council asked us if we could help with this area. So we decided what we'd do is let's keep everything very small. So Ripple Africa is run just like my office cleaning business. And so we started off, and we have the main stakeholders, who are the district council and the forestry department. You've then got the traditional leaders, that's the traditional authorities and the village headmen. And then you've got the local community. And so what we wanted to do, rather than having a large area, and bear in mind, this particular area, they'd had, I think, USAID funding to protect this area, but it was very top down. Nobody understood. It was a very, very long reports that nobody understood, with lots of acronyms in. And so local people didn't buy into it at all. So nothing happened. And what we wanted to do is we wanted it to be owned by the local community. So what we did is we set up what we call a forest conservation committee in each chief's area. And each committee has about 10 or 11 members. And so you've then got on the right-hand side, you can see the village chief area and the village conservation committee. And their idea is to educate the local community. So they discuss what the problems are, i.e. that there's a lack of rainfall, that sort of thing. And we tend to advertise it, the fact that if you have more trees, you have more rainfall. If you have more rainfall, you can have better crops. If you have better crops, you've got more food, you've got more money. And everybody wants that. So they all buy into this. We then create very simple bylaws. And I think one of the keys to what we do is we keep everything very, very simple. I hate having lots of long documents that nobody understands, which is what often happens with sort of conservation programs and all sorts of other things. So we have very simple rules, and then these bylaws are owned by the local community. And so rather than the government fining people and then keeping the money and it goes into the one account, they call it number one account in Malawi, it all gets lost and that number one account is very porous. It's actually paid to the Forest Conservation Committee. And they will also get support from the Forestry Department and so on, and also from us. So this is a typical Forest Conservation Committee. As you'll see, there's lots of women involved. What we like is responsible people within the community to be part of this Forest Conservation Committee. They are not paid, it's all voluntary work, and their job is to conserve the forest in that area. And, you know, report if anybody is cutting down trees or setting fire or whatever it is. In this Candoli project, we had 80 forest conservation committees. So whereas there's probably before about 3 forest conservation forest guards, we now have 800 forest conservation committee members. And again, it's all kept very local. We have meetings so that they can sort of share results and share best practice. And this is, we probably started this project about 15, 16 years ago. And this was the original sort of documentation. So very simple. As you can see on the right-hand side, you've got what it was like before deforestation, what it's like now. And then the idea of what you're doing is not selling what's happened in the past, but selling what's going to be happening in the future. So you either do nothing and you lose all of your trees, or you have forest conservation, you protect the trees on the steep areas, and you have to accept that you have to be realistic because people need to grow crops. So the areas that are flat, most people are going to cut the trees down there. So you can't really protect all the areas. But I said that we keep everything very simple. I like to keep everything I do on one A4 sheet, if possible. And so this was basically the bylaws here. And as you can see, it's very simple. There's no cutting down of live trees, no fires, no ringing of trees, no production of charcoal, no hunting, no building, and no gardens. And when we had, I think, 120 families living in this area, and the traditional authorities actually found other land for them to move to. So they all moved from this forest area. And then there was, in fact, one chap who went back and he opened up a large farm. Anyway, he was arrested and he was put in prison for 5 years. And 1 year was for farming illegally in this area. And the 4 years was because he was farming marijuana. Anyway, he went to prison. He's now out and he's actually working with one of the Forest Conservation Committees. So it's quite a good success story. The other problem is charcoal. Charcoal's a massive problem all over sub-Saharan Africa. And it's a really difficult one to solve. And Malawi it's very, very poor. We have very few people who have electricity or any other way of cooking. So it's either firewood or charcoal. So we were called in by the Mzuzu District Council to come and have a look at the Choma Hills. Now, these hills stretch about 60 kilometers long, and all of this area was deforested for charcoal. And so we were called in to see if we could help do the same thing as we did in the other forest area. And on the left-hand side, you can see Force Singwira, who's our country director. He's an amazing chap. He's worked with me for 20 years now. And he sort of headed this project. So we have, I think, about 600 people now working on that project. That's community members working for free, and they're protecting the areas. And in fact, many of the charcoal producers are actually now growing trees. Now, one of the things, it's very difficult to plant indigenous trees. Nobody really wants to do that because they want to plant trees because they can make money. But what you can see on the right-hand side is the trees now are regenerating. And it's fantastic to see. I went back in 2023, and this is basically what it looks like now. I took my drone there to take some pictures. So they're all coming back. And the key thing now is to make sure that everybody in that area now knows that these trees must not be cut down for charcoal. You're not going to be 100% successful, but if we can get a reasonable success rate, it'll be fantastic. The next thing is firewood. From an early stage, I suppose it must be probably 18 years ago, 19 years ago, we started producing fuel-efficient cook stoves. We first started with little metal ones, and then we've progressed onto another type. But the typical 3-stone fire uses about 3 large bundles of wood every week. Now, we've developed a very simple solution, and we call it the Changu Moto, which is the fast fire. It's made from 26 bricks, and it's just 26 mud bricks and mud. So it's all local materials. There's nothing Western in it at all. So it can easily be managed, maintained, and looked after by local people. And this is basically what they look like. This is down in Salima. And down there, they like to use different colored muds to decorate their houses and things. So that's what they've done with their Changu Moto. So we try and teach them, this is your new baby. You've got to really look after it, and it's going to really look after you. And it's been very successful. Anyway, we've built about 120,000 of these Changu Moto cook stoves, and they're saving about 240,000 bundles of wood every week. We want to raise money to build another 300,000 cook stoves. It only really works in the rural areas. Again, going back to charcoal, it's much more difficult because charcoal is popular in the towns, and that is a different problem altogether. But in the rural areas, this works very, very well. Another thing we do is tree planting. Now, probably a lot of you would like me to be planting indigenous trees, and we certainly started off doing that. And we had a lot of success in the tree nurseries, but planting them out and looking after them was less successful. So really what we tend to do now is really protect areas that have had trees that have been chopped down and let them regenerate. But we're doing a lot of planting of pine trees. Now, it's needed because in Malawi there is no timber. We have to import really any good timber now from Tanzania. So what we're doing now is getting local farmers in the Gender area, which is in Mazimba district, to plant pine trees. And we're planting somewhere between 2 and 3 million trees per year. And it's very successful. This is a typical area that individual farmers plant. So each individual farmer plants about 1,500 trees. Some might be 500, some might be 5,000 trees. But these are several years worth of trees. And this will give them a fantastic income for the future. And we're also working to get this registered as a carbon credit project so that we can actually get carbon income from it for future. These are some trees that were planted about 5 years ago. This is a chap called Cosmos Mahango, and he was one of our tree farmers. He had a few pine trees that he planted years ago, and he cut them down. And with the proceeds, he was able to buy this car. So the beauty of pine trees is they grow very quickly. We have tremendous success rate with them. And we've been able to get them to plant them really effectively and look after them effectively. And it will bring lots of income to these people. And one of the things I've been surprised about is very often in Africa, people live for today rather than planning for tomorrow. But they really seem to be planning for tomorrow by doing this. And you're getting grandparents, for example, planting pine trees for their grandchildren. So the next subject I want to talk about is our Fish for Tomorrow project. And we've learned lots from our forest conservation project. So this has been very, very useful with this. Now, Lake Malawi, for those of you that don't know it, it's the 9th largest lake in the world. It's 560 kilometers long by 80 kilometers wide. And this is just one of the small lagoons, which is a wonderful fish breeding area down in Salima district. It's the most biodiverse lake in the world. There are about 1,000 different fish species. And this is the area that we cover. So all of these colored areas from Mangochi in the south right up to Inkatha Bay is the area that we cover in the lake. And it's about 80% of the lake on the Malawian side. And the actual length, if you take all the sort of curves of the lake as you go down, we've got about 730 kilometers of lakeshore that we're covering. We have 474 beach village committees. Now, these are a bit like our forest conservation committees. So we've got about 5,000 people working on this project, all not paid. They're all responsible people in the communities. 35,000 fishers and 133 fish breeding areas. Now, bear in mind, being an office cleaner, I didn't know anything about fish. So the project actually started one day when there were some children a bit like this that were fishing on our beach with a mosquito net. And I thought it was rather quaint, and I didn't really appreciate that it was a fairly major problem. But I went to see what they caught. And this is what they caught, a cooking pot full of little tiny fish. And I was horrified. So I got somebody to explain to them that this is illegal and you've got to let the fish grow. And I threw all the fish back into the water. Well, this is the size of the fish that they were catching. And this is a chambo fish, which is really the most sought after fish in Lake Malawi. And they actually grow to this size. That is the bottom one in this picture that's actually the chambo fish. Now, I thought I've got to do something about this. So I contacted Alex Makanjira, who is our local fisheries extension worker. And I said, look, Alex, I don't know anything about fish. I want you to tell me everything there is to know about fishing in this lake and what's going wrong. So he took me to some landing sites and showed me, told me, all about the fishing and what happened. So we decided what we'd do is we'd get together and we'd come up with some solutions. And so I said, look, very often when you work with government staff, they tend to think in a government sort of way, and they have all the limitations of how government works and what they do, and there's all these protocols and so on. I'm not like that at all. I said, look, forget this. You are today, you are the president of this country, and you can decide to do whatever you like. Because if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got, which is the mess that we're in at the moment. So we looked at what the problems were. And the first problem is the increasing population. As I showed you before, it's risen so quickly. But not only that, but we've got people that have become very efficient at catching fish, and then they migrate to where the fish are. And so they start taking all the fish from the people who live in that area. The other problem is illegal fishing gears. Now, we have malaria is a big problem in Malawi, and we get lots of mosquito nets. I think there's 9 million nets just been delivered, I think, recently, or is it 11 million? It's a lot anyway. Now, they're brilliant for mosquitoes, but they're also brilliant for catching fish. So the fishermen buy them off the women who are given these nets. And this in this picture is just one net. It's made out of over 300 mosquito nets, and it's one drag net. So they go out in a canoe, take it round, have two teams pulling it in on both ends with a rope. It just scrapes along the bottom of the lake, it destroys the bottom of the lake, and it catches everything. This was down in Mangochi district, down the south, at a place called Malindi. And I was horrified when I went there, and I took my drone there to take some pictures of the nets. Almost every fisherman had a net like this, and it was they were all drag nets. I estimated there was something like 12,000 individual mosquito nets being used for fishing on this one beach. I mean, it was just terrible. Anyway, lots of those now have gone, and which is brilliant. This was in Kotagota district, which is sort of halfway up the lake, a place called Chia Lagoon. Chia Lagoon was full of fish. It was a most amazing place. They had a lovely fish market. The fish market, when I got there, nothing, no fish. And this net was just come in, they just pulled it in, and all they caught was this. And this is a typical story right the way through the lake. So I thought, I've got to do something about this. The next problem is all the fish breeding areas were cleared. All these reeds and things were cut down, so there's nowhere for the fish to hide. So it was nice and easy for children and women to come along with their nets, and also for commercial fishermen to come along with their drag nets to destroy everything. There was no closed season for fishing, so there was no time when the fish could recover. The other really big problem is, it's a shame, I'm sure, in many African countries, but certainly in Malawi, there is no money. No money for government departments. So there's nothing for forestry, there's nothing for fisheries department. And this is Mangochi district, the main fishing district in the whole country. And this is their main vehicle. And so, of course, when they were to go and confiscate illegal fishing gear, there was nothing that they could transport them in. So we work very closely with government departments, but on a local basis, and it works very well. So what we did is we got them to get a quote to get this car fixed. And it cost $4,000 to fix it up, and there it is. It looks like a new vehicle after. It's amazing for $4,000, and they're able to use this. The other problem is the extension workers have motorbikes. Now, very often the motorbikes don't work. This is what happens to them. And the other problem is they never get money to run them. So very often they can't afford the fuel. So they can't get around. So we provide motorbikes for the extension workers. That's the forestry extension workers and the fisheries extension workers. But not only that, most importantly, we also supply running costs. And we make sure that they're actually doing the job. If they're not doing the job, we stop it and we take their motorbike away. But generally, these extension workers are actually quite keen to produce good results. And if you can encourage them and get them working as though they're working for us, it works very well. The next problem is there was no ownership by the local people. When you ask them what the problems were with fishing, they all blame the government. It's the government's fault. It's the government's fault. Well, in some respects it is. But I said, okay, well, with this project now, you are the owners of the fish in your area, just in a small area. Don't worry about the whole lake. You just worry about the little bit of fishing in front of you. And that works very well. So the local people now have got control over fisheries. We work with forest conservation committees, with the forests, but with this, it's local beach village committees. Again, we have at least 30% women in each committee, and sometimes it's a lot more than that. Normally 10 or 11 members, and they basically own the fishing rights in front of where their chief's area is. And so again, I told you we work in small areas, and this is just like my office cleaning business. They look after that area, and they are responsible. So if anybody comes fishing in that area with illegal fishing gear, they are empowered to confiscate that fishing gear, and they can fine them, and they can keep the money. And they are supported by the chiefs. If you've got a corrupt chief, then the traditional authority gets involved. If he doesn't sort things out, then we get fisheries department in. But we make sure they get the backing, and the money goes to them. It doesn't go to government, which is really important. We then get the support of all the stakeholders. And the important thing is make it really simple so everybody understands it, right from the fishermen to the children in the area, to the police, to the fisheries department, everybody. So this one of the things they want to do is they want to decentralize fisheries to all the districts. So rather than it being run from Lilongwe, it's actually run from each district, which is much better for us. Again, keeping everything in a smaller unit. And so this is a meeting here about monofilament nets, which are a big problem and still are a big problem in the lake. And we've got you can see on the right, there's the local police representative, but you get the fisheries staff, traditional leaders, district council staff and so on, and they all talk, and you just have to have everybody singing the same song so that they know what they're doing and they get on and do it together. But most importantly, you need the community. So everything from the young children, we teach them in the local schools about conservation and why it's important not to catch the baby fish, why you've got to let them grow and so on. So you get the support of all these. I've mentioned lots of times about keeping things simple. This is a typical training document here, and we can basically tell people about the fishing problem within 2 to 5 minutes maximum. So you can see at the top, you've got the fishing with the mosquito nets. And when you get 2 young children catching the amount of fish you see in that picture up in the right-hand corner, if you could let them grow to the maximum size, you're having a family, a very poor Malawian family, that's having a meal that's potentially worth somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 if you could let them grow to the correct size. The next thing is to protect the fish breeding areas and to then use larger nets to catch the bigger fish. And once you do that, you get them to understand that they must catch the larger fish, not the small fish, make the money, save the money. You can buy iron sheets for your houses, you can pay school fees, and you can have a much better life for your family. So the thing that I think I see lots of aid that just doesn't work. in Malawi, as I'm sure all of you do. And I think all too often it's far too complicated and far too complicated for ordinary people to understand. So we make it very simple. So this project is really about protecting fish breeding areas. That's number one. That's the low hanging fruit. And this is a fish breeding area you see here, very low, shallow area. Stop fishing with mosquito nets. I mean, mosquito nets should never be used for fishing at all. Stop all the dragnet fishing. Now that's quite difficult because although we've managed to get rid of most of the mosquito net dragnets, they still have other dragnets which have got legal nets in. And so that still carries on. And the other thing is local ownership. Get every local ownership working as a team and to try and make them realize that they must not allow migratory fishers. Because if you've been protecting the fish in your area, the last thing you want is for other people from other parts of Malawi to come and steal your fish. And so you get that real ownership, which is important. Now, we're very unlike most NGOs. We don't have meetings in five-star hotels. We tend to have them on the beach like this. And this is how we work. So when we first started, we started along a 40-kilometer stretch of lakeshore in Inkatha Bay district with this one fisheries extension worker. And when I asked him, how many people have you arrested in all the time you've been working here? You've been working there 6 years. None. How many nets have you confiscated? None. So how many illegal nets are there? Many, he said. So I said, well, we've got to change this. So we now have 25 beach village committees in the same area that he was working. So we now have 250 people who are responsible for managing the conservation of the fish rather than just the one. He's there to support them though. And this is Chawana, which is a fish breeding area. And this was our first one that worked really well. And it was all as a result of this man, a chap called Fanuel Mpandi. And he was the chairman of the Chawana Beach Village Committee. And he said, look, I've got children and I've got grandchildren and I want fish for all of them. So we need to do something about it. So he listened to what we said and he did what we said, which was to protect the fish breeding area. So normally in December, all little baby fish would be gone. There wouldn't be anything left. They'd all be caught with mosquito nets. But that very first year he protected it, there were literally millions of tiny fish. And they were so excited, they even started feeding them in Sima. So they're very pleased. And then I said, okay, well, these little fish are going to go back into the lake. They're going to grow. And what you're doing now, you're catching your fish with 2.5-inch nets and 3.5-inch nets. I said, look, if you use a 4.5-inch net, you're going to catch bigger fish because I want you to make money. Conservation is all about you fishermen making more money by doing the right things in the right way. So that's what they've done. So he now catches lots of fish. And his fish catches have gone up by anywhere between 500% and 1,000%. It's quite incredible how quickly it happens. Now, this graph here shows you the average kilos. So you can see on the blue picture at the top, before it's about 27 kilos of fish they were catching in a month. Now it's anywhere between sort of 200 and 300 kilos per month. Now, the other thing, the fisheries department only look at weight of fish. They never look at size. Now, to me, the size was really important. And I thought they were always catching very small fish. So you can see on the bottom graph, the red is the small fish, the orangey color is medium fish, and the green is big fish, large fish. So before the project, it was a lot of small and medium. And then consistently, once we got the project going and we got them using the bigger nets, they were mainly catching the larger fish. And you can see how much more they're catching. This is fish breeding areas. This is another place called Makumbi. And it's a fish breeding area where, again, they used to clear all the reeds, catch everything with mosquito nets, absolutely nothing left. Now, I went back there in 2023, and this is what it looks like now. Nothing like as good for swimming, but way better for the fish. Lots of fantastic habitat for the fish. We're also getting crocodiles coming back, which again, not so good for the swimming, but brilliant for keeping fishermen away. We're also getting hippos coming back. So it's wonderful to see. And it doesn't take very long. And these guys have actually planted a lot of these trees that you'll see in the lake here, which is brilliant. And they're making a lot more money from catching their fish. And we're getting a lot more big fish coming. Fish that they haven't seen for like 20 years are beginning to come back into these areas. We've confiscated thousands and thousands and thousands of illegal fishing nets. These are just some of the mosquito nets here. Now, it's 10 to 4 in Spain anyway. I don't know whether you want me to stop now. I can go on a little bit about Usipa fishing, or I can stop there. What would you like me to
Geoff,
do?
I think you've covered an extraordinary amount already. Unless there's something specifically different about Usipa, now might be a good opportunity to go back to the floor and get some questions.
Okay, that's fine. Good. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you. That was fantastic. Some absolutely incredible results, frankly. It seems like community empowerment's been a big key part of this. I could ask a lot of geeky questions, but I'm going to go in on your pine tree plantation thing, which I think is fascinating. Because carbon's important, but additionality is really key. And have you done any before and after biodiversity surveys or of the soil to see what other animals are using those pine plantations? So if you've got an area that's cleared before, is there a heavier insect burden or large numbers of birds or mammals or anything once the pine is in, or do you know what kind of impact that's having?
I don't know. We're working with an organisation on the carbon credit side, and that's something that they're going to be looking at. So they're going to be looking at the soil and all of these sort of things. And I think they're also quite keen for us to be FSC registered as well. So I think a lot of this will be covered under that. That's not my sort of expertise is sort of people and managing people, but definitely, those sort of things would be very useful to know more about.
Yeah, also just to make sure that what you're doing there is having a positive impact on things beyond just carbon, also on wildlife as well, would be fascinating.
Yeah.
One more question before I put it to the rest of the group here. There's a significant decline in your catch during COVID. Was that because of COVID, or was that because of something else?
I don't think it was because of COVID, no, because everything pretty much went on as normal. I mean, we've got a problem at the moment where we had a lot of the lake level had gone down a lot. Now it's gone up, and it's going up even higher, and we're losing all our beaches, so that's causing a problem. We had a lot of windy weather. Wind is brilliant because it stops people fishing. So it's brilliant for the fish and not so good for the fishermen. But, you get years that are better and some that are not so good. And I'm not sure exactly what all the reasons are for that.
Interesting. Thank you. Steve, over to you. Next question.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey, for coming here and sharing this story with us. Really appreciate it. And I hope you can work with us afterwards. We can capture some of this information. It looks like it's already, packaged like in this presentation. We can add it to our solutions map for other people to see it too. We like as many people to hear these positive stories, learn from them. And I just want to say I was nodding in agreement. I think a lot of people here really feel good about what you're saying. Keep it simple. Aid does tend to bureaucratize and complicate things. Lots of money wasted. And in our experience too, setting up some programs, one called Surviving Together, it all started from just talking to the rangers, talking to the local communities, and putting a simple program together that allowed the communities and nature to survive together. And some of those programs still continue. So I hear what you're saying. Applause there. My two questions, you might have covered this. There's a lot you covered there. You talked about various things that cost money. I mean, buying those motorbikes, fixing that car, 800 staff with salaries, etc. I know a lot of people there were volunteers. Where did you get that money? And secondly, with the committees, who authorizes them to enforce?
Okay, well, where do we get the money from? Well, it's always a challenge. I really hate getting money where there's too many strings, because when you're being told, there's a really good video I've just seen. It's about pizza making, and it's about aid and the money that comes from large organizations. and they wanted to change how these pizzas are made. And it's kind of like that with lots of aid money. And that's why I've said it's not about ticking boxes, because it isn't. And if there's too many boxes to tick, I don't want that money. If I have freedom how to use it, how to spend it, I can get amazing results. I mean, I've done this now for nearly 22 years. And the important thing for me, I don't get paid a salary. I haven't been paid for 22 years. The important thing to me is that we get amazing results, that we get people really satisfied with what's actually happening. So most of the money is coming from trusts, and there are some really good trusts that really support you. And the most important thing is that they support you on a regular, ongoing basis. The ones that support you for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, and then they've got to find somebody else, it seems kind of crazy, because you need to build up a good relationship, I think, if you're giving money. So those trusts are very useful. We have companies that provide money. So for our tree planting, we're having companies that provide money for each tree that's planted, and it's tied into what their sales are, for example. That works very well. So a sort of commercial basis is good. Some money from individuals, and the trouble is we're always looking for money, and we spend far too much time spent on actually trying to raise the money. So that's the one part. The second part of your question, what was that again? Sorry.
It was about enforcement.
Enforcement, yes.
Yeah, technically, who authorizes those committees to act to stop the netting, illegal fishing, etc.
Well, we basically set it up. So if you take a district, for example, a district's probably about 4,000 square kilometers. And then along that length of lakeshore, you've probably got 60, 70 committees, something like that. So we have a sort of umbrella committee, if you like, that is over all of these committees. And they're made up of the sort of senior people from the other committees. And we basically have a very simple idea, simple rules. And once you've got one committee working and they know what to do and what's illegal, what's not, what is legal, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, that's just rubber stamped to all the different committees. And so they know what it is. For example, we make it kind of simple. We sort of say, if you had maize in your garden and somebody came and started stealing it, what would you do? We'd stop them. So why would you stop them? Well, because it's my maize. Well, before they didn't think of that in the same way with fish. And I think it's really important that they do. They take that ownership. And once they take that ownership and they realize that those fish belong to them, they don't belong to anybody else, they belong to them. And if people are coming in with illegal fishing gear to steal their fish, they know they can do something about it. So they're empowered to do that. And everybody kind of knows that's what they need to do.
Fascinating. Thank you. Roger, over to you.
Yeah, well, sort of continuing that discussion in a way about enforcement and your bylaws, and you talked about empowering the community, but when you confiscate their nets and things, do you get any kind of violent reaction from the migratory fishermen? So to what extent do you get violent reaction to enforcement?
Sometimes. I mean, what we try and do, the time we get violent problems is if the fisheries do it. Because fisheries, I've always said to them all is, we want fisheries to be the friends of the fishermen, not to be the enemies. And that's why it really needs to be the local communities that are actually doing the confiscation rather than fisheries. Fisheries can help them. And in fact, with the migratory fishers, they actually can be our best salesmen. Because what happened when we first started was that when they were told by the local community and the local chief, you can't fish here anymore because you're a migratory fisherman and you're losing illegal fishing gear, they confiscate the fishing gear. They then go to another district where we hadn't started the project. And they don't want them either, because nobody wants migratory fishers because it's more competition. So they then say, well, why have you moved here? Oh, well, because Ripple Africa's got this project in Nkarta Bay, and we're not allowed to fish here. Well, we don't want you here either. So then they contact us and say, well, can we have the project in our area because we don't want these migratory fishers? So it kind of works like that, really. I mean, you will definitely get some violence. And I think when we first started in 2012, the fisheries had a confiscation on one of the beaches about 7 kilometers from our place. And they thought it was us that had started it, which it wasn't. It was actually fisheries. And they got really cross, and there was a big fighting, and it was nasty. And they came down to our place, and they actually set fire to one of our buildings. And actually, this was one of the best things that could have happened, because it made me realize, look, this definitely must never be fisheries that do the confiscation. It has to be the local community. They have to want it because it's good for the local community, not because it's the fisheries, not because it's the government. And so that's kind of how it works.
Geoff, Bruno, last question to Bruno.
Yes, and thank you, Geoffrey. I mean, that's a fascinating presentation, and everybody talked about that, but I think what is important are really the ingredients that you are outlining, of the simplicity of the intervention and innovation that are sort of building on each other over time. But also what I think is quite remarkable is the work you are doing with stakeholders, and just understanding really the stakeholders, and making sure that they are aligned and so forth. And also I thought your example about training being sort of very short, focused messages for people that they can understand is really brilliant. So you have got a lot of things that are quite interesting. So aid in general fails because it's the lack of sustainability. As long as you have got money and attention on a project, on a small project or a small innovation, it's going to work for some time, but then it's gonna stop, and it's not sustainable. And what you have there are precisely the elements that allow to build the sustainability, because these are the people, these are the local communities that are really in the driver's seat. So I find that really quite interesting. And I hope we capture that very well in the solutions map, because those ingredients are really the key of success for a lot of projects. A very small question for me is always, beside the sustainability, it's always about the scaling up, and how do you do that? And I've seen from your presentation that over time, of course, you have got more communities that are tagging along and so forth. Your thoughts about how you can take those projects to scale, and really sort of building even larger scale of impact and results. But thank you so much. It's a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I think, from my point of view, I'm getting to a stage where I don't really want to scale up myself much more, but I'd like to raise enough money so we can cover all of the lake on the Malawian side. And I know we can do that, and we can cover that very comfortably. And I'd be very happy to share how we do things with other people, so they can do it in other water bodies, like, other ones in Africa, for example. Because I think what we do, it really works. And then certainly, you're talking about sustainability. One of the things I want to do is to get district permit fees. Now, there is a government permit fee, which is very small. And mostly governments are not terribly clever at doing this, because they're not business people. What they need some of these fishermen can earn a lot of money. And so what they're doing at the moment, it's a bit like them going into a supermarket. They fill up their trolley with lots of goods, and then they walk out without paying. And that's no good. So nobody's getting any money. And it's wrong that people like us really are doing it. It needs to be the local Malawians solving their own problems. So if we have this district permit fee, which currently for a district, they get something like, I don't know, about $5,000, something like that. And I want them to be getting about $200,000 per year for a district from local district permit fees. And then this money is paid by the fishermen to the district council. And then I want to work with them so that we can get the money, then a portion. So some of it goes to the beach village committees, some goes to the traditional authorities, and so on. So the ongoing running of this project is funded by the fishermen, who are benefiting from better fishing rather than from, people in the West. So that's how I want it to continue.
Super. Thank you, Geoff. And yeah, fantastic presentation. If anyone would like to write to Geoff afterwards, please just drop me a line, and I'll put you in touch. That was tremendous, astonishing results. given such a short amount of time and such a complex landscape. Amazing. Thank you, Geoff, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Any other business? And thank you, Geoff. Next town hall is Wednesday, February the 5th, when we'll be hearing from Zinacast, and we've got storytellers lined up for future months as well. And we always welcome ideas from the floor as to who else can present like this. The bar has been set very high by talks such as Geoff, but we love to hear from anyone here about who you'd like to come and present to us. Otherwise, just leaves me to say have a very happy January. I hope everyone's getting over the New Year blues, and see you all in February. Thank you ever so much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Geoff.
Thank you.
Thank you.